morning. Hope you're all okay. How have I had a busy morning already? Happy Sunday. Haven't seen you all for a good week or so. Hope you're all okay. Did anyone join Kitty for her Christmas tree last night? She had a mammoth, I think it was about 3.5 hours, showing you how to make her beaded Christmas trees. So that's lots of fun. Hopefully you've been having fun in your bead groups as well. I've got the Bead Club tutorial coming soon, the tube bracelet, which is going to be nice. Say hello to you all. Good morning, Sheila. Hi, Maxine, Jitty, Gwen, Sandra. Christmas tree was lovely, says Angela. That's nice. Good morning, Katrina. She says hello to all the other beaders. Hi, Lucy. Ruth, Helen, lovely. Got lots of you. So I've had a slight change of plan for today. We were going to do brick stitch, and we actually did that a couple of months back. We had some lovely bookmarks, and we made sort of flames and shells and little patterns, and we did the little download sheet for you. So I thought, because I've already shown you brick stitch, and brick stitch is probably one of the go-to for Christmas charms as well, and making little motifs, I thought I'd show you a couple of extra ones today actually. So I'm going to show you how to do one with square stitch and also how to do one with peyote stitch, because I thought, let's do something different. I've already shown you brick stitch, but we do have the pattern sheet for it as well, so you can go and find that tutorial, no problem. Thought, let's give you some extras. So I'm going to take you over to the website very quickly, because we've got an amazing seed bead bundle today and also a brick stitch download pattern sheet. So if I spin you guys around and show you the website, you can have a little look-sees. So categories down to Facebook tutorials, you know that this is where you can find us all. We've got the Maisie bracelet, the Elizabeth crystal bracelet, Madison, snowflakes, that was my last one, so we've been busy. Brick stitch patterns for Christmas. So here is your download sheet. You can go and put that in, it's absolutely free. Download that, and that will give you your grid sheet so that you can colour in all of your little patterns, and then you can go and find my brick stitch tutorial, which you'll find back on the main page. We've done an amazing Christmas bundle, should be £17 down to £14.71. You're getting 10 bags of your size 11 seed beads, so you've got 100 grams in there, which are going to be fantastic. And this is all of your Christmas edition colours. So you've got your gold, your browns, your reds, your greens. You could do Christmas trees, Christmas pudding. I'm going to show you the Christmas pudding today. Snowflakes, all sorts of little bits in there. Christmas bells, you can get Rudolph out of there as well. And then we've put in the ring size memory wire, because you can actually make little wine glass charms out of these as well. So it's super easy to work with, and that's only £1. You get 40 coils, so we'll probably use just over 1 coil for each one. So you'll still get, gosh, at least 30 charms out of there, which make the most fantastic gifts and presents as well. Let's get you back. So that is where you can go and find all of your little bundles and everything as well. Lynn says, hi, Sarah and everyone from Bristol. Hello, hope you're all okay down there. Morning, Camille. Sharon says, hello to all your beaders. Oh, Camille says, hi, Sarah, how are you? I'm all right, thank you. It's been busy. I am looking forward to having some time off at Christmas, but aren't we all? Okay, so, actually, let me get rid of my name down at the bottom there. We don't need that, do we? Oh, can you tell I haven't done these for over a week? Right, okay, so these are your amazing bundles, and we wanted to give you Toho because when you're doing patterns that interlock in together, like your brick stitch or your square stitch, your peyote, everything else, you kind of need that uniformity. So these are the colours that you're getting. They are absolutely fantastic, and I've already made 5 or 6 charms out of these, 2 of which I can't blimmin' find now, but hey ho. So what happens when I'm prepping these so far in advance and then they get lost in the den that is the study. But you've got all of these fabulous colours. So you've got your gorgeous blues for snowflakes and your silvers. They're going to be fantastic. For the Christmas pudding, I've used the gold, the brown, the green and the red. And I'm going to show you the peyote stitch holly leaf in the green as well. Some beautiful colours. Okay, so I'm going to start with the holly leaf. Starting with peyote, because this will be For some of you, familiar territory. I know for others, it's actually something that you just can't quite get your head around. So these are really nice quick makes. I'm just trying to get got my lovely spools of threads here. I want to use this nice green, and I was using it a moment ago, so I've probably lost the end. There he is. Okay, so I'm going to take about an arm span-ish and then thread my needle on, and I'm using an easy eye needle just because it's super quick and simple. Are these Delicas? No, they are size 11 Tohos, Elaine. You can do this with Delicas, but you actually get a very different shape. So your Delica beads are cylinder beads, whereas Toho is a round seed bead. So you do get a slightly different finish. Okay, so I'm going to show you first of all how to start your holly leaf, because I've actually got one that's half made, so I'll finish the other side with you. And we're going to start off with 14 beads. Now I also need a stopper bead. So I pick a bead that is a completely different colour to the rest of my project. So in this case, let's just go for the red, because that was what was to hand. I'm going to pop on my stopper bead. So I'm going to take that down to the end of my tail. I'm still going to leave enough tail so that I can weave back through it. And then I'm coming back up through the bead, making sure you don't pierce that thread, because this bead is now movable. So this is going to keep my tension, but I can just slide it straight off my tail when I have finished. Diane says, question, the tube beading you were doing, is it chenille stitch? Yeah, it's tubular chenille stitch, but don't let that put you off. I know a lot of people struggle with tubular chenille stitch, so I'm actually also going to show you a cheat. That's in my bead club. Is that the 17th of December, I think it is? Kind of edging on to Christmas then, aren't we? So yeah, we'll be doing tubular chenille. Question, the tubular bead night, the tubular netting pack on the site around $14.99. That will be the one. That's the right kit, yeah. Okay, so we're going to start off with 14 beads. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Bring these down, and another 4. 12, 13, 14. Okay, I'm going to move these out the way a little bit so I can get nice and close to you. Okay, so to start off peyote stitch, you have your centre. Oh, morning Kitty. She says yes, 17th and 18th. She's like my little diary keeper, isn't she? Keeping us right with dates. Good morning, Paula. Hi, Diane. Okay, so I'm now going to pick up a bead and turn back on myself. So I've got my last bead here. I've picked up a bead, and I'm going to miss that out, and I'm going to come back up. And then I'm going to do it again just before I let my tension go, because this is actually going to let them sit really nice and neatly. So you'll see I've got the beads kind of curved over my finger, which is actually opening up some of that space for me to work with. Picking up a bead, missing a bead on my row, and going through the next. So you can see where my bead is, my thread is exiting from, missing a bead and going through. And now I'm going to pull this nice and tightly, and it will just let those first few start to sit in their right place. So again, with your tail, you can move that stopper bead down, and you don't have to worry about your tension too much on your first row. Once we start working back on ourselves, we'll be good. So again, my thread is exiting now from this bead. So I'm going to pick up a bead, miss a bead in this row, and go through the next. And once we've done this first row, I'm going to transfer to one that I have already made and is half finished. So you can have a little look. Again, just picking up a bead, missing a bead on our row, and going through. So you can see I've got it nice and open. Just keep all of that workable area nice and open for you. And can you see, as we start to go, these beads interlock next to each other, and it will leave us these little gaps. And don't worry that I've got this gap up at the top. He's going to sit flushly like so. And so you can see you start to get all of these little gaps in between, and this is where Oh, okay. I think people are asking about the kit. So Molly wasn't sure what stitch it was when adding it to the website, so it's called bead weaving. I think that's the tubular kit that we are talking about for the bead club, which I have here somewhere, and I'll show you at the end. But yes, it's a tubular chenille stitch that we'll be doing. But also, actually, I didn't want to call it that because we are also doing a little cheat version of it. So that you can, if you are really great at beading and you're confident and you're happy, then you can go with the chenille stitch. If it is something that you struggle with, and I didn't want to put anybody off or to leave anybody behind, then actually I'm going to show you an easier way to achieve exactly the same look as well. Okay, so you can see each time I'm adding on my beads, and your first row with peyote stitch is always a little bit harder. It's always a little bit trickier because you've got nothing to hold on to yet, and we are just creating that base foundation row that everything will start to build from. So when we get up to the top, you can see we've got that lovely little tail of all these beads. Don't worry that some of them are looking a little bit wonky. That's just where they have spun around. And then we're going to start working back on ourselves to start creating our holly leaf. So that gives you, oh, the dogs are awake, that gives you that center spine, okay? And that's what I'm going to move to now on my other piece. Shouldn't be a delivery this early on a Sunday. They are tricking me. We've had snow this week. It's been so gorgeous. And there's a little field just in front of our house. And the kids have been out there building snowmen and having little snowball fights. I think the dogs are jealous. They want to go out and play with them. So whenever they see them, they're just sat at the window. I'll put a little picture up on Instagram later. Django just sits there with his head on the windowsill looking. Okay, so this is half of my holly leaf. What kind of needle are you using? I'm using an easy eye needle because it just makes it so easy. With things like this, you have to unthread your thread and rethread, and especially when you're doing lots of little charms, I just find it so much easier to use. So Jodie, I'm using an easy eye needle. The middle part of chenille stitch was fine. It was the ends, I think, made up. I went wrong. So is that when you did the flat chenille with Kitty? Yeah, we're doing a tubular. It's a lot easier. Morning, Django and Curly. Everyone say good morning to them. Okay, so when you're starting, this is the exact spine that we've just created. Okay, so forget the fact that I've already done the rest of the holly leaf. This is where you are starting. It just makes it easier because now you can see the completed thing. So once you get to your very end bead, we're going to start working back on ourselves. So I'm going to pick up a bead, and you'll see that when I turn around, I've got a bead sticking out. These are the little gaps that we are going to fill. So I've got my extra bead up at the top. I'm going to come down, and because I want to start decreasing in size with my peyote, I'm actually going to go through 2 of my beads. So I'm going to add a little stopper on the end effectively and come down so that I can start filling the gaps in between, like so. And then you're going to pick up a bead, fill the gaps in between. And for anybody who is still struggling with it, I can go back to that spine and just show you the initial ones if you would like. But you can see all we're doing is coming in and filling in the little gaps in between. So peyote should be a really easy one for you to master because your thread path is so visible. It shows you everything that you need to fill, all these little gaps in between. And then I've got one more to go up here. I'm going to make this one a little bit wider, I think. Filling these in. Now, the trick with this one is that I don't want to keep on growing my stitch. I want to decrease in size, and I will always flip my peyote stitch around and come back on myself. So I'm always beading away from myself. It's just the easiest way to do. So I'm going to move over one little section. So can you see my thread? My bead is my thread is exiting from the last bead in my row. I'm going to step across next to. Don't want any knots this morning, thank you. Stepping over and then coming back on myself. And you wouldn't necessarily do this for jewellery, but when you're doing little charms, your thread path is going to be really hidden. It doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to continue going. And now I have decreased my row, and I'm going to keep on going and filling in these gaps. And you want to keep on going until you only have 2 gaps left to fill. So I think on this one we're on about 4. Coming up, filling that gap, turning around. So I'm just flipping it over. And again, so now I want to come and fill this gap here, but I don't want to add any more beads on. So I'm just going to step across to the bead next to it, and then over from it. And I get that hidden thread path inside my beads. And because it's a little bit tighter, and this is, I would only do this for holly, because it's a little bit tighter, when I pull it, I'm going to get that lovely curvature of my holly leaf as well. So it's giving it a little bit of texture as well. And then we've got 2 more to go. And then once I've shown you this one, we'll move over to square stitch for the Christmas pud. So like I said, you want to keep on going until you only have 2 spaces left to fill, which are these 2. So I've got 1 here and 1 here. Again, I'm going to turn that over. And for this one, I'm going to come again through my beads and back over. Now when it gets to here, I want to create the little spikes for my holly leaf. So here I'm going to pick up 3 beads, and you can see it comes together really quickly. I actually decorated a whole wreath with these maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. So I'm picking up 3 seed beads, and can you see where I've got this little gap just in here? I'm going to go along to the next bead that is sticking out. And what that will do is give me an extra little section to my holly. Picking up another 3. And crossing over. So I'm just going to let that 3rd bead, so your 3rd bead will become your little spike. I'm just going to do it so that he sits a little bit more proud. There we go. And then you've got a really cute little holly leaf. And then back up to the top. So I'm now just going to take my needle, run all the way through, run all the way through the outer edges of the holly leaf. And then I've got a beaded holly that I can add some little beads onto at the top. So if I pull this nice and tightly, I'm going to get a nice little bit of texture as well, because we've got some of those beads on the outside that aren't clicked into place like you would have. And then if you've got maybe a red pearl, I did have a red bead here somewhere for my holly, or you could put little clusters of your red seed beads in there as well, up at the top. And then you've got a very easy, what's that, maybe 5 minutes spent on that side. Very easy little holly leaf. And we can just knot these threads together, and then of course we can attach it onto our memory wire at the end as well. So it's super simple, very easy, and the great thing is with your thread paths, because they are hidden, I'm just going to tie a couple of knots in these. Because your thread path is hidden, but we've kind of crossed over a little bit, you get that gorgeous bit of texture as well. So it's not just flat, which I think is better. When you're doing something like holly, you want that texture rather than just a flat piece. And you can make little pairs of these, bind them together, sew them together, and then I'm going to add them onto a little wine glass charm in a minute. Okay, so that's your peyote stitch. Very, very simple. If you know how to do peyote stitch, then it's going to be super easy for you. This is my little square stitch Christmas pudding. So he is just adorable. Great little card toppers as well. If you're making Christmas cards and you just want something a little bit different, then these are a really nice way to add a handmade touch. And they are only sort of 10-minute makes, not even really. Maybe more for your first couple until you get used to it. Oh, someone's asking if there's a kit for the holly leaf. No, it's the green beads from your seed bead collection today for all of your beaded charms. And then, yeah, save the video and then you will have this to make along as well. So you've got your brick stitch. Now, I'll show you the little pattern sheets that I've been using. This is how I design all of my little pieces. So you can do your holly in a square stitch, which is what I'm about to show you. You can also do little Christmas trees. You can do little Christmas puddings. This is a Christmas pudding that I'm about to make for you. You can, of course, do it in your brick stitch as well, but I wanted to show you something different. Brick stitch we did back in the summer, and I thought, you know, everybody does brick stitch. Let's do something different. If you want to do your brick stitch, you can add on your little free download, but to be honest, there's so many free downloads all over the internet for all sorts of stitches. You'll be able to pick your favourite ones. Put some eyes on it and it could be an animal's head. Do you know what? I tried to do a Rudolph. I made a Christmas Rudolph and that was in brick stitch. And it was probably about 6 years ago, I think. We had a lovely little weekend retreat and I was teaching beading. And I've tried to, and I cannot find the pattern anywhere. And I tried to replicate it and it looked like some sort of skull. And I just couldn't quite get it right. So I thought, you know what, let's go Christmas pudding instead. Okay, so following your patterns, and this is the same for absolutely any stitch. I'm going to use the darker brown in the Christmas collection for your seed beads. Let me put my Christmas pudding in so that those who have just joined us can see it. Isn't he cute? I just need to weave the threads in, but I wanted to save that to do with you. So a little bit up at the top. If you've got white, you could add that in there as well. Yeah, of course, what I'll do is I'll go on to Totally Handmade into the group and I will post a picture of these little patterns that I've coloured in and then you guys can use them as well. And then we need a couple for berries and a little bit of holly up at the top. So it's very, very simple. Okay, so when you are following any pattern, I always start with the longest row. So I'm going to start with this little centre bit here. And that will give me my starting point. And then I also know with my thread, if I keep my thread attached to the spool, this side I can work from the spool and this side I can work with the thread that I've got. So it's an arm span. So I need one green, 3 of my gold, and 7 of my brown. So that's where we'll start. So we'll go 1 green, 3 of my gold, and then 7 of my brown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now you could add a stopper bead if you want to. I'm not going to bother with this because you will still have yours attached to the spool. And then we're going to start square stitching all the way back up. So I'm going to add on, that one's a little bit irregular, so I'm actually going to get rid of him. We're going to add on a bead, come back down through. So this is the opposite to peyote. We would normally come back up all in the same thread path. But this time I'm going to come back down. So you're starting off quite similarly to ladder stitch really. Bringing it up and coming back through. So you can see I've got that lovely little bead down at the bottom. And then you're just going to continue following then the second row in your pattern. So we're going to come down through the next bead, picking up a bead, coming down through. Oh. Twisting them over. There we go. Now, when you come back down through that second bead, so this is my first row. When you come down through the second, you're going to cross back over and go up through the bead that you have just added. And that's going to bring that in nice and tight. So can you see that I've still got my first row beads? Yeah. And I'm adding my second. If I start now, they could be next year's Christmas cards, says Camille. Well, these could be little wine glass charms maybe for the table rather than your cards. I don't actually do Christmas cards. It's probably very naughty of me, but it's something that I've just never done. I've never really had the time, but these would be gorgeous little toppers. So adding that bead on, crossing it over, but you could do that, couldn't you? You could sit this year, sit now, watching your little Christmas movies, start making some of these little motifs and then pop them in the little box. Then you just got to remember where they are for next year, haven't you? Get a head start. So you can see I'm just adding on bead by bead, adding on my second row, picking up a bead, adding it to the first row, bringing it down, just allowing them to sit nice and neatly together, crossing over and coming back up. And this is different to your brick stitch because these actually sit the beads directly next to each other. So peyote, you are interlocking them together. Brick stitch, as the name would suggest, you are making a brick-like pattern. So if you think of how your bricks are all stacked on a wall, they sit in between each other, whereas your square stitch, you are sitting them directly next to each other. And I just find it really useful, and this is why I wanted to show you the difference between a few, because if you are making your little patterns and you think, well, I can't quite achieve the shape that I want or that I need using one of the aforementioned techniques, then you can adapt it and change it. Okay, so I've got my first row here. This is where we started. Now, obviously, I'm working up on this side. So I'm going to take my first gold bead. I've got a brown one next to it. Then we're going to go 2 more gold and 1 more red. And I'll do a few rows with you because I would like to show you how you decrease in size or how you add in your extra little holly bits up at the top as well. So just keep on checking that pattern. You can always block off as well if you've got a piece of paper. You can always make sure that you can just by eye very quickly see what row you are working on. And just like with peyote stitch, it's the same with any of your bead weaving. So I've got my first gold bead here, so we want to go 1 more brown, don't we? Yep. With your first couple of rows, it's always that little bit harder because you don't really have much to hold on to. It's going to move around a little bit, but they are the most important because they are going to start to give you that base foundation that everything will work from. So you'll see every time I'm adding on my bead, I'm just then holding it, stabilizing it, making space to go back up through that second bead. Then we want our gold ones for a nice little icing on top of the pudding. Bringing that stitch over and up and through. And they're really cute just to sit and bead away with if you've got a bit of spare time or if you're watching your favourite series on Netflix. I've just finished The Crown. It's taken me forever, but I've just finished it. Absolutely loved it. It was so good, but I had to constantly sit with my phone because I kept on Googling things to find out if they really happened. I know it is a drama, but I wanted to know how much of it was based on real life as well. Absolutely loved it. Okay, so I've now got to the top, so we're going to add on our next bead. So in this case, it's going to be my red for my berry. Down we come, crossing over and going up through. Now for our next ones, I've actually got some added holly on top. So as you can see, I've gone from my red bead and then I'm actually increasing in size. So there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can either do that main foundation first of all. Oh, Queen's Gambit. Yes, I finished all of that one as well. That was fabulous. So yeah, when you're sat there and you're just watching telly, you can just be beading away with some of these. I've seen some fabric stars and chains I fancy doing. Also some beading and knitting crocheting ideas for presents. Nice. Sounds like you are busy. Okay, so I'm going to add on first of all just my normal base. And then I'm going to come back and add on the extras. So we're going to go green. And the hard thing is when you are doing a stitch like this, you can either, there's a couple of different ways, it's whatever is comfortable for you. And I'm hoping that I'm kind of showing you this and taking that fear factor away. Of course, now that I'm going to start working back on myself, so I've come down this one, up this one, And now we're going to come back down this one. So you can either turn it around and start to bead up, or, and I'll show you on the next row, you can actually run your needle all the way through. So before I added this one on, you can actually come all the way back down and then always continuously be beading upwards. So it's entirely up to you. It's whatever sits more comfortable for you and however it is easier for the pattern to follow. And that's another great thing with your brick stitch. With your square stitch rather, because you can have as many of them, as many of the rows going whichever way you would like. Okay, so what I also do is just add the beads that I need to. So I've counted here, I need 4 of my gold beads in this row. Just sit them away from your pile, and that way you know by eye when you can then change colour again, and you don't have to keep on referring back to it. So you can see now that I've got a couple of rows on the go, it is easier to hold on to. Everything sits in place really nicely. I can just keep on coming through. 2 more gold ones to add. And it really does come together quite quickly. I will add on a little pattern onto the Totally Handmade group as well, so that you guys can see these. Oh, Sarah, I'm now watching Iron Fist and want to finish that before I watch The Crown. Oh, I haven't heard of that one. I need to go and find this one. This is quite good. You're all giving me extra things to watch. Oh, Kitty says she's watched all of the seasons with her Lucy. Is that The Crown, Kitty? That was great. Struggled with a Christmas tree yesterday, mainly as I didn't have all the beads I needed, but have the download pattern, so we'll give it another go. Great demo, Kitty. Oh, lovely. Yeah, the trees were fabulous, aren't they? Do you know, I still haven't made one. Kitty did gift me one, and I've got that, which is really lovely. That must have been a few years ago now, Kitty. Got my lovely little green one. That she gifted me, but I do keep on meaning to make one because it'd be nice on my little crafty table at the back, wouldn't it? Okay, so I'm going to keep on going down. Now on this row we are continuing with the same amount of beads down at the bottom, but on the next one we actually need to decrease, which is how we start getting the lovely little curved bottom of the pudding to give us that lovely little shape. So we'll keep on going with this one first, then I'll show you how to decrease and also to increase, because I want to add those nice little holly sprigs up at the top. And then hopefully we've covered all angles of making your little charms. It's just one of these things you just need to have a little go at. They make for really lovely little embellishments. You can even hang them on the tree as well. A little bit small for that, but you could. You see how it's curving round? It's just because this the tail is getting a little bit looser. So if you pull that nice and tightly, that will fix that up. Okay, and here is our last one. With square stitch, I do like to run up and down each row at the very end as well, just to neaten it all up. So at this point, if you wanted to continue your pattern and always be working in the same direction, you can take your needle and run all the way down the row so that you're constantly beading from the top or the bottom. That's entirely fine. Or you can just rotate this around. So I've got, at this point now, I need to decrease. So you can either come up through the beads. So I basically need to be exiting from this second one so that I'm adding a bead here rather than down here. So just like with your peyote stitch, when we do odd or even count, I need to be the other way round. So you can do the little cheat and you can go underneath the thread path. So it's actually only going through the thread in between these two beads. That will actually lock off that thread. And I can then turn around and I can go back up through my beads with my thread still being secure. And then I will be ready to add the next bead on. So it's another brown one. So you can see now I'm exiting from here. And I've actually changed my I've changed direction here, which is absolutely fine. You can do. And coming back through. And then I'm going to go up 2 beads. So now rather than beading away from myself, I've actually changed the direction and I'm adding it in the opposite way. But again, doesn't matter. It's whatever you like doing. So now because I'm going through my main row, I'm adding them in and going through. Oh, I think I picked up 2 there. So unthread this one. So rather than trying to go back through them, I've just unthreaded my needle, removing that extra bead. And we'll thread this back in. Easy eye needles make it so much easier. For you at home as well as us doing lives. Oh, I think are we all talking about Charles and Diana now as well? Oh, it's just so sad, isn't it? So sad. But I think the programme covered it really, really well. Obviously, we'll never really know what happened. It is just a drama. But it was really interesting to sit and watch. I absolutely loved it. I do love the royals anyway. I just think it's so much pressure on them, isn't it? Awful. Okay, so getting back up to the top, we are going to add on our extra holly. And we're just going to do that by adding on an extra little sprig, an extra couple of beads. And then you can start adding shapes on. So, for example, if you wanted to do like a Rudolph, adding on his antlers, of course, they are going to be extra little limbs that we need to add on. And I will show you the pattern again, just so you can see where I'm going with it. Adding these on all the way up to the top. Need my little bit of icing. Sometimes you get carried away as well. You just sit there, especially when I'm talking to you guys. You get carried away and just carry on with the same colour. But it's easy to go back. Okay, so there is the very top. And now, because I've actually got my next row, so you can see on my first green bead, I should have added another little bit for my holly. But because I ignored that and continued going, I've now got this great base foundation of 2 rows. So this time I'm going to add on 2 beads. So this will give me 1 to sit on my left thread, also 1 to sit on my right. So I will just come down to the previous bead. And I'll go back up so that I can make that sit nice and neatly. Like so. And then you're ready to continue again. So I'm going to come down through my next bead. And I'm going to go round again, because we need to change that direction. So if we come up through that first little bit of holly, the only thing with using your easy eye needle is sometimes they get stuck. So I'm just going to use my flat nose pliers to bring that through. And so that I can change direction, I'm going to bring that thread across. And then we are positioned again for our next row. So again, I'm going to rotate it. And then we'll continue going. And it really is super simple. Underneath that thread path, coming back down. And you'll see it's just neatened up all of those extra little bits of the holly. And then I am in my position ready to continue with my pudding, which is another green one. So we'll add that on. Back up through the bead from the previous row. And there I am, back down, and then ready to carry on. So hopefully that's given you all your little tips and your thread paths for the top as well. The great thing is with these, because they are so regimented and it's so uniformed, your little thread paths, I've got so many little directions in here where I've kind of jumped across, gone back up, crossed over. It's all really nice and hidden, but super, super cute. Okay, so finishing off your threads, because you could of course make earrings out of these as well. You could have them as little brooches. You could put them onto your wine glass charms. I'm going to show you your ring-sized memory wire in a moment as well. So finishing off your thread paths, you can either, and here I've finished the little Christmas pudding, you can see my needle's actually coming out at the top here. So you can either run back down, and sometimes if you've been crossing over a lot, there isn't going to be much of a visible path within the beads. They might be quite full, in which case tie little half hitch knots, and then you want to just run through as many of the beads as you can. Let's bring it out at the top so you can actually see it. And not only will you go straight, but you'll also cross over as well. So my thread, I should have used a different coloured thread for you, but I'm exiting from one of these beads here. So on this row, my third row, and then I'm just going to cross over to the left, do a couple in there, cross over to the left again. So I've got a bit of a zigzag thread path in there. Little half hitch knot at the base. So underneath, leaving that loop up and through, that will give me my half hitch knot, and then I can just weave that back through. And I'm happy that that will be nice and secure. So then I'm just using my scissors, I'm pulling my thread up, pushing my beadwork down with my scissors, and that will give you a nice neat finish. Finding your needle again, and then we'll thread back onto this one as well. So you can see, because they are quick makes, the easy eye needles make it really simple to just keep on threading and unthreading. Because if you're like me, it's going to take you forever to actually thread your needle as well. So my thread is exiting from that bead down there on my third row. I'm just going to cross over. And let's do a few little zigzaggy bits and pieces. Just to weave that in and hide it. And don't pull it too tight, because you'll probably warp the shape of your beadwork if you do. You can even tie little half hitch knots in between if you would like. They're totally invisible. So just take that needle underneath the thread. So I'm not going through any beads, only underneath the thread. Leave that little loop, go through your loop, pull that nice and tightly, and then go into a couple of beads directly above it. And when you pull that nice and tightly, you will find that that knot completely hides. So then you know you've got a nice little bit of security in there as well. And there you go, there's your little Christmas pud. So you've got your holly, you've got your Christmas pudding. I'm going to share this one with you as well. You can have your Christmas trees as well. Now with your memory wire, make sure you use your memory wire shears, or if like me, I've got a pair of pliers that I actually sacrifice. So your memory wire with rings, I always find that it's not as sturdy as your bracelet memory wire, but these just make fantastic little wine glass charms. So I'm going to cut it enough that I can make a little loop. So I'm going to do about 1 1/4 rotations. Like so. And then we'll use our round nose pliers, we'll create a loop on one side. And your memory wire, as you know, it's going to keep its shape, but I always find that the rings actually don't hold their shape particularly well. So just be careful when you are working with it that you are keeping it in a nice coil. You're not kind of marking it too much. So I've got a loop on one side, and I've just brought that up, that nice little tip up to keep it nice and straight. With my Christmas pudding, I'm just going to put the memory wire straight through the centre of my top 2 beads, just making sure I don't pierce my thread. Sorry, I know I'm off camera a sec, just needed to see it. Let's hang him on there. He looks cute, doesn't he? And then we'll create a nice little hook at the top here that our memory wire loop can go into. So because I've got my loop facing sideways, if you like, I want my hook to make sure that it's going to go into it, so I'm going to take it away from me. And again, just make sure that you're not marking too much of your memory wire. You want to try and keep that nice and stable. And there we go, that'll be a really cute little wine glass charm. So these little wine glass charms are to help you identify whose glass is whose. Saves on the washing up, because then everyone keeps the same one. And then just get your little stem. I should have brought one in. You put these onto the little stem of your wine glass or your champagne glass, cocktail glass, anything like that. And then someone's a Christmas pudding, someone else is the holly leaf, someone else is a Christmas tree, someone else is Rudolph. Especially this year, it's going to save everyone swapping glasses. So they're really cute, and they make fantastic little gifts as well, in a nice little gift box. And then, of course, remember in your memory wire, you're getting 40 coils. So I've used only just over 1 on there as well. And then they're going to be super cute, easy to remove to wash your glasses, and keeping those on there. It's just a very sweet little charm that you can make nice and simply. Okay, hope you've all enjoyed. Remember to get your fabulous bundle of seed beads as well, the Toho seed beads. The quality of them are perfect, obviously, for weaving. And of course, because you have those silver lined, it just gives you a little bit more of a Christmas sparkle and feature to them as well. The ring memory wire is also good around long dinner candles. Oh, so like a candelabra candle. That would be really cute as well, using them on there. Great idea, Alison. Thank you. Amazing. Okay, so I think you're all chatting away to each other, which is so lovely as well. We've got a really lovely community. Good morning, Dean. Really lovely little community. Head over to our Totally Handmade by Totally Beads Facebook group. I'll pop up a picture of my little grids in there as well. Lovely session. Thank you. Feeling a bit Christmassy now. Oh, that's good, Adelina. I finally managed to get the tree up. Haven't quite finished. I just haven't had the energy, which isn't like me. Normally I look at the tree and I want to get it all finished, and I think it's been sat with all the baubles and boxes around it for about 3 days now. But I will make sure I finish it today. So I'm beginning to feel festive as well. Thank you all so much. I will see you next Sunday. I can't actually remember what we're doing either. I'll have to have a look in my little diary. Oh no, it's not in that one. But all of the events are added onto our Facebook group as well. It would be lovely for a Christmas card, Dean. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous as a little topper. And then, of course, you can keep them maybe as a removable little section, and then you've got a gift as well. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, everyone. Enjoy all of the education that we're bringing you. Stay safe, sit inside and do a nice bit of beading. And I will see you in a few days. Question, how do you do the pictures on the graph on a computer? You could do it if you set yourself up a little graph. The harder thing is doing it on the computer. You need to make sure that for square stitch it's fine because it's just all rows. So you could do it, you could even do it in paint. You could make yourself a nice little grid in Photoshop, and then you can colour them in, because with your square stitch they are just rows. Brick stitch and peyote is a little bit harder because you need to interlock them. But I actually think Kitty's got quite a few download sheets. I'll ask her to maybe pop some up on the handmade group. And And then of course you can just sit and colour them in. I just get my pens out and have a nice little session designing them. Okay, so yeah, I'll share these patterns on the Totally Made group. I will see you all next Sunday. Enjoy your week, stay safe, and join Kitty tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Bye.